The life and sad ending of Geoff Edwards. Geoff Bruce Owen Edwards was born on February 13, 1931, in Westfield, New Jersey. Edwards began his career while attending Duke University, working for a radio station in Albany, New York. In 1959, Edwards got his first job at KFMB AM in San Diego, hosting an evening show and co-hosting the Don Ross Geoff Edwards Show. As a news reporter for KHJAM Radio, Edwards was present in the basement of the Dallas Police Headquarters when Jack Ruby shot suspected John F. Kennedy assassin Lee Harvey Oswald on November 24, 1963. Edwards was one of the witnesses interviewed by NBC television correspondent Tom Pettit on the scene. In its 11th annual radio selections for the Best of 1967 column, the Los Angeles Times selected Edwards for its Personality of the Year for Edwards' on-air work at KFI. After a few short stints at other stations, Edwards was hired at KMPC in Los Angeles, occupying the 9 a.m. to noon slots for several years, beginning in February 1968 until December 1979, when he resigned to focus on his TV career. He later worked at KFI from 1987 to 1989, but he ultimately resigned as a protest against fellow KFI personality Tom Leakey's destroying Cat Stevens records following Stevens' call for a fatwa on Salman Rushdie. Then, Edwards was a morning DJ with KSUR in Los Angeles. One of the features of his radio show was Radio's Answer Lady, in which listeners could call in with questions, some serious, some not so serious, and he would answer on the air, sometimes with serious answers, sometimes with quips. During that time, Edward tried his hands at acting, appearing on I Dream of Jeannie and That Girl. In 1968, he was seen in several episodes of Petticoat Junction as Bobby Joe Bradley's boyfriend, Jeff. From his time on the show, he met and maintained a very close friendship with Meredith McRae. He also guest starred on Policewoman, Different Strokes, and Small Wonder. In the early 1970s, Edward appeared on The Bobby Drain Show as the straight man to singer Bobby Darin. After that series ended, Edwards pursued a game show career, starting with Says Who in 1971, followed by Cop Out in February 1972. However, both shows eventually turned out to be unsold pilots. Edwards' first full-time game show hosting stint took place from March through June 1973 on Jack Barry's Hollywood's Talking, a remake of a late 1960s ABC game show, Everybody's Talking, and the Canadian hit, I Bet. The program featured contestants watching video clips of celebrities talking about a subject. Their job was to guess the subject in question. The series, which aired afternoons on CBS television, did not fare well, and the network canceled it in favor of the phenomenally popular Match Game remake. Edwards was not unemployed long, as Chuck Barris hired him to host the new Treasure Hunt that launched the weekly syndication in the fall of 1973. In January 1974, Edwards returned to the daytime with the NBC show Jackpot. For the next 19 months, ending in September 1975, Edwards would commute back and forth between California and New York as Jackpot taped at NBC's Rockefeller Center studios. He would briefly do this again in 1977 during the run of NBC's Shoot for the Stars. Both it and Jackpot were produced by Bob Stewart. The new Treasure Hunt would also come to an end in 1977. In January 1980, Edwards debuted as the host of the new Barry and Enright show, Play the Percentages, which he hosted until the end of the television season when it was canceled. He also hosted his last daytime network show when he substituted for Bill Cullen on 2 weeks of NBC's Chain Reaction, another Bob Stewart show. Edwards also briefly tried his hand at producing when he teamed with Mark Maxwell Smith to form Smith Edwards Productions in 1980. The duo signed a deal with Warner Brothers to produce the game show pilot Pot of Gold for NBC, but the series never sold. They also worked on a talk show based on the magazine Ladies' Home Journal, but that series also failed to sell, and Smith Edward Production folded in 1981. Later that year, Edwards returned to television to host a daily revival of Treasure Hunt for syndication that was canceled at the end of the 1981-82 season. In 1983, Edwards began hosting Starcade, a new show centered on video games. He took over the show from the previous host, Mark Richards, who hosted from December 1982 until the summer of 1983. The show initially aired on superstation WTBS and went into national syndication from September 1983 to September 1984. Richards was fired for the reason that he did not know much or was very enthusiastic about video games. Determined not to repeat what his predecessor did, Edwards studied the video games utilized on the show and the industry in general, and consequently became so fascinated with video games that he became an avid player. Edwards kept up the hobby until his death. In November 1985, Edwards replaced Chuck Woolery as the host of the California Lottery's weekly game show, The Big Spin, which he would host for 10 years, mostly from the lottery's Sacramento headquarters. Then, in 1986, Edwards was called on by Stewart yet again, this time to replace Blake Emmons as the host of its Montreal-based revival of Chain Reaction, which aired in the U.S. on the USA Network. He would do this until the series was canceled in 1991 and would commute between the United States and Canada during this time. During this time, Edwards would also take the job as host of a revival of Jackpot for syndication in 1989. Edwards was also one of 4 game show hosts to have emceed a game show in the United States and another in Canada concurrently. Edwards commuted back and forth between the U.S. and Canada between 1986 and 1991, hosting The Big Spin in the 1989 revival of Jackpot in Sacramento, California, in Glendale, and the USA Network version of Chain Reaction in Montreal, Quebec. Edwards was also the co-host of the Los Angeles news program Mid-Morning LA on KHJ-TV, now KCAL-TV, replacing Bob Hilton in the early 1980s, and paired with co-host Meredith McRae. Edwards and McRae won Emmy Awards for Best Host and Best Hostess, respectively, for a news magazine series. In his personal life, on February 13, 2013, he and his wife, Michelle Pfeffer, celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. They tied the knot on February 13, 1973, Geoff's 42nd birthday. In his later years, Edwards traveled extensively, hosting traveling programs on both radio and television, and writing about travel. His travel book, Going All the Way, humorously chronicles his around-the-world cruise adventures. He appeared as a guest on GSN Live on May 16, 2008. Sadly, Edward died of complications from pneumonia at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California, on March 5, 2014, less than a month after his 83rd birthday. He was cremated.